Thank you so much for joining me today for the AltWire Podcast. As you might be seeing, I'm joined by a second person here today. Say hello to everybody, Evan.
Hey, everybody. My name's Evan. It's nice to be here.
Really excited for who is joining us. Many of you may know him as the lead singer of Incubus, Brandon Boyd. Evan, I know you're a big fan of Brandon. You were really excited when I told you we were getting this interview.
Oh, definitely. He's one of my biggest influences.
For all you watching, please like, follow, and subscribe. Please share us on your social media. Your support and your love is what gets us these interviews. So thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode of the AltWire Podcast. It's really nice to have you with us. For Morning View 23, you all went back and re-recorded the entire album. I've been really thrilled to hear its sonic evolution after those 23 incredible years. Was it strange to go back and revisit the album at pretty much the literal place of its creation over 20 years ago? Or did it kind of feel nostalgic and spiritually meaningful?
It was both of those things. It was nostalgic in many, many wonderful ways. It was thrilling in certain ways because there were elements of, in particular, that room. It's a big living room with really high, sort of like cathedral windows, and it was designed to host acoustic orchestral performances. That's what we were told and back in late 2000 when we were looking at that place. And it was, it was empty. There was almost no furniture in it. We brought in like mattresses and recording gear. It looked like we were squatting. So going back into that room was really cool. It looks kind of exactly the same. The house hasn't been updated or anything. It's kind of, in a lot of ways, was sort of falling into disrepair. It was also kind of weird and kind of stressful at the same time. I'm assuming you guys are referring to the live broadcast we did from there, the live stream.
Right.
I think it was 2021, or maybe it was at 22. Anyway, because it occurred to me right then and there, and it hadn't occurred to me before that we were going to be judged based on how well we performed the songs as compared to something that we wrote and recorded when we were 25 years old, and that's a tall order. So I had to really just surrender to it. It's I'm 48 now. I was 25 then. We're going to make this what it is today. We're not going to try and recreate what we had done, 23 years ago. That being said, once we started to really dig into the recording of Morning View 23, we took the live drums from that live stream because Jose performed them beautifully, and the rest of us re-recorded everything.
That's badass.
Yeah, so we took the live drums from that thing, and then we recorded everything between a recording studio and my house, and it ended up being this really wonderfully fun, complex, nostalgic, but also excitingly new thing. And for so many reasons, not the least of which is because Nicole Rowe was performing with us on this re-record. When we got to we were getting to know Nicole, not only as a new friend, but as someone who was just freshly joining our band while we were doing this re-record. And so we'd be sitting in the studio with her and recording, and she was just up for anything. It was so much fun. She was such a delightful presence in our band. And so, it was everything. It was good, bad, scary, exciting, all of it.
That's amazing. It sounds like it was a really special time.
It certainly was. I can only hope that people, take Morning View 23 for what it is. It is a re-record. The original record still exists. It's not broken. We weren't trying to fix it. We were just doing it kind of a little bit of a creative exercise of sorts. And we also got our re-record rights back from the original record contract. So it was why not?
You Taylor Swifted them.
Yeah, that's the working description. We gave him the old Taylor Swift move.
Now, obviously, you guys all got back together to re-record that. Did you bring in any of the other original personnel on for this album, like the producer or the engineer?
No. The engineer his name was Rick Will. He passed away, I want to say 6 years ago or so. One of the most badass engineers we've ever worked with. He was such a talented engineer, such a great dude. He is partially responsible for how awesome and kind of organic the original Morning View sounds. He was really able to capture the sound of that room, along with Scott Litt, who produced the record. Scott was more involved in like the mixing of the album, but Rick Will was with us every day there while we were recording it. He had this, he had a travel case, like one of those metal touring cases that opened up, and it was overflowing with what he called vibe. And it was just lights and lava lamps and blankets and things. And so he like turned the actual recording room, which was a loft above the living room, into just like the coolest, like there may have even been like black light posters up. Anyway, go back to your question. It was engineered by Tom Sorowski, who we've been working with as an engineer for probably 15 or 16 years, maybe even longer than that. And Adam Hawkins, is that his name? Mixed it. I just met Adam for the first time. Let me just confirm this for you so I don't. Yeah, Adam Hawkins mixed it. Mikey and I went to Nashville. We mixed it at his house. So he did a good job.
Nashville's a great city too. A lot of history there. What I really appreciate about the approach to the album is that it feels like you will take a lot of the experience you've garnered along the way with all the subsequent releases, and it's like you feed that back into the recreation of these classic songs. What were some of your favorite experiences going back into the studio and recording?
I appreciate that observation. I think that whether we were trying to or not, that is most certainly what happened. Some of my favorite experiences with recording this were the final track on the record, Aqueous Transmission. We had done this pretty kind of like involved orchestral performance on the original recording. And we brought, string musicians into this living room and recorded them and like live flute. And it was very kind of involved. And we've lost touch with almost everybody in that regard, except for the woman who helped us with the orchestrations and, put the musicians together. Her name is Susie Katayama. She's an amazing musician. We've known her for a long time. And alluding to your question, part of the thing that has changed over all these years is we've built out a pretty extensive network of friends and colleagues who are musicians and artists from all different walks. So, we had new players, one of which she performed on Aqueous Transmission. She performed on Mexico. She performed on 11 a.m. Any other song on the new recording that has any violin, viola, or cello is Anne-Marie Simpson-Einziger, who's Mike's wife. She's a phenomenal musician. She's a classically trained violinist, and she was a touring violinist with Steve Vai and Hans Zimmer and all these people. And so we were like, we needed strings. And we were like, hey, Anne-Marie, come in here and play this part. She's like, great. And she stacked them and everything. So yeah. And then some friends came in and did different parts and recreated the entire album. Everything was brand new.
That's amazing.
It's kind of funny that you mention Aqueous Transmission, because that song in particular is a notable favorite because it's often a closing song for your tour. Mm-hmm. Did you feel any pressure to ensure the vibe was right going into this re-recording with certain songs such as that one?
No, not pressure, but importance. I would say we've done a pretty good job over the course of our career of recognizing when there were certain things that were of a level of importance and attuning to that moving forward accordingly, but not allowing for that sort of, that weird demon to rear its head, like pressure. That's one of the things I think about being a performing artist, that if you get a handle on the sort of psychology of performance and the psychology of recognizing when something has become a level of importance, even to you individually, let alone to an audience that could span over a long period of time or across the whole world, pressure can be a thing that sabotages the whole thing. It can take it all down. And so there's a difference between recognizing when something's important and then allowing for that to infect the process. I feel like if we hadn't figured that out from a relatively young age, we probably would have been putting out very different records. Our records would have been way more pandering, for lack of a better word. I think that it's a testament to our ability to take on some of that awareness and sort of transcend it, perhaps, for lack of a better term. That is just allowed us to, make records that people didn't know they wanted to hear.
Definitely. I feel like those are words to live by.
Yes, and that's a true question. Like we knew that it would be important to capture a particular vibe. But what's cool about a song like Aqueous is that the minute, and we've been rehearsing that track because we're about to go on tour down in the Southern Hemisphere. And we've been rehearsing it. And the minute Mikey picks up the pipa and sits down and puts it onto his lap and starts messing with it, it's like built in. That instrument it's like the thinnest wood, and it's resonating through this strange little sort of avocado body. And the way that he plays it, I don't even think Mikey is aware if he's playing it correctly, but it is doing something. Something is occurring that is really, really cool. And it doesn't matter where we are, what room, the minute he starts playing, it's like, there's that vibe.
Definitely. That's amazing.
You seem so proud when talking about this re-record. Obviously, Aqua's Transmission, from what you said, is an exciting one to look out for. What song are you most excited for fans to hear from this upcoming re-record?
That's definitely one of them. I was really excited when we put out Echo, because it's a version of the song that it's true to form in its arrangement for the most part, with some marked differences. It ends differently. It's the way it ends on this recording is the way we've been playing it live now for about 4 years, I think, 5 years maybe, which has this kind of big crescendo ending, which is very different than the original recording of it. Then there's also the fact that Jose stopped playing the song on brush sticks like 2 years after we recorded it. He started playing them with his regular sticks. And it gives the song a little bit more of an urgency. So it's less mellow. But I liked that about it. I liked that it was a little bit more urgent in its presentation. So there's that. Another one that I'm really excited about is Under My Umbrella, which actually I think comes out next week. I'm not mistaken. And that's a song that was probably the deepest album cut from the original, but the re-recording of it sounds really, it makes you want to smell your mustache. You're and I hope that even non-mustache having humans can have that experience with it. And then lastly, another sort of deep album cut, which I'm excited about, is a track called Blood on the Ground. The re-recording of it, actually, I enjoy more than the original recording. So I will be curious to see if anybody else feels that way about it.
I'll be looking forward to that. So after 2 decades, you guys have performed these songs for all of these years. What have been some of the most challenging things you've endured vocally? How do you maintain your voice on a regular basis after putting it through the ringer year after year?
I was just having this conversation this morning. My voice has definitely changed in the 23 plus years since the original recording. Part of it is just aging naturally. Our voices just sort of change. They deepen, And then there was the fact that I had learned to sing on one nostril. I had a badly deviated septum from 2 nose breaks before I was even 20 years old. I broke my nose twice. And it lent itself a little bit to the way my voice sounded for the first almost 30 years of our career. But then it became, as we age, our noses and our ears never stop growing. That's like a thing, right? So if you have a badly deviated septum, it'll just keep deviating. And so it became right around my mid to late 30s, I started to notice it was like getting harder to sing. And it was kind of annoying. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, am I just getting old? And so I started to almost like surrender to it. I was like, I just can't sing like that anymore, or whatever. And then it started getting kind of painful to sing, like actually painful in my face. And so I went and saw an ear, nose, and throat friend of mine here in Los Angeles. And he's like, can I please do an x-ray of your face? Like, from what he could see, he's like, from what I can see, your septum is really badly deviated. And it would explain why it might be painful for you to sing like up the way that you like to sing. And so he did like all of the fancy scans and everything. And he put them on the thing. He's looking at him. He looks at me and he goes, your face is fucked up. That's what he said.
That's quite a nice thing to say to someone.
I was like, okay. He's like, please let me get in there. Let me fix your septum. So I had, they knocked me out. They Mr. T'd me and they rebroke my nose from the inside and they fixed my septum in 2019. And so I got the opportunity to learn how to sing over again. So to answer your question, how do you maintain your voice? You do it by breaking your nose from the inside, resetting it, and starting from scratch at like 47, 46 years old. That's how you do it, kids,
I need to find a 2x4 then for my nose.
Wanted to shift a little bit because you mentioned that you're very soon about to travel to Australia. I can imagine probably one of the hardest things about touring is leaving your family. Your love of your adorable pugs that we heard is also known, having found their way even into your music video for Nimble Bastard. How do you survive being on tour for possibly months without seeing them? Does a pet sitter watch over them? Do you video chat, or do you fly back a few times at mid-tour Taylor Swift style to see them?
Oh, to have that Taylor Swift style fund to be able to do so would be really cool. We're not quite there. And God bless, like to have that capacity. I don't know if she's doing that, but I would if I had the capacity to. No, first thing is we still tour a lot, but we don't tour nearly as much as we used to. Most of us in the band are married and have homes that we love and dogs. And some of the band even have little humans and not so little humans that are, that rely on them. So that part is really, really hard. And it gets harder as you get older because you understand this sort of how powerful and essential presence is, like physical presence. And so my wife and I have a policy in our relationship where we've learned that we won't ever be physically apart for more than 2 to 3 weeks, as much as that is possible. There's a chemical sort of separation that starts to happen after 2 weeks, both psychologically and but physiologically, that can be detrimental to relationships. And it has been on almost every relationship I've ever been in. Being a touring musician is very, very challenging in that regard. So we're about to we start in New Zealand, then we go to Australia, then we go through Asia, and it's going to have us gone for 4 weeks. And there's just not a way for me to come home in that 4 weeks. So we're having to bend that rule temporarily, but then we'll be home for a number of months. So in the events that we can't, abide by that sort of self-imposed rule, these technologies are the next best thing. Since we have FaceTime and these sort of video chat tech, it's made things a little bit better. I even do my best to try and FaceTime with my dogs. I don't know if they can see me, but they certainly get up into the camera and start wagging their tails. So it makes me feel a little bit better.
I think they can definitely see you, definitely hear you for sure too.
Yeah. They can't smell us though. That's the thing.
Right.
That's what I most with.
When you're on the road for so long and things get tense, because with any band that's going to happen. How do you guys break the tension? Do you all prank each other on tour? Is there certain things you do to kind of chill out a little bit?
Pranking each other. That's a fantastic idea. Or it's the worst idea that has ever.
Maybe both.
Yeah, right. We definitely, first and foremost, there's a great deal of love for each other and in our general kind of like band universe. Everyone that comes on tour with us, that works with us, has been working with us for, I think that the youngest member has been with us almost a decade now. Some of the oldest members have been with us for over 2 decades. So it's a sort of family band, so to speak. Things do get intense. People get tired. People get sick. People get homesick. The food usually sucks. You know, these sort of creature comforts. Oh, black cat. What we try and do is lean into each other. You know, like if someone starts feeling a little bit of the blues with being on the road, we do things to make each other smile. We'll offer more love, bring each other food, offer, love and affection, watch movies together, go on a day off if there is one, go see something, unique or unusual about the place that we're in. These things, it's really just sort of basic human stuff that you do to remind people that they're not alone, that we're all here together. We do our best to do those things. And even then, being on tour for a long period of time is challenging. I don't know how the Grateful Dead did it.
Speaking of Grateful Dead, you actually had a question pertaining to the Grateful Dead, Evan, that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I did. What are some of your most favorite Grateful Dead albums? What are the ones you revisit like the most often?
I haven't revisited a Grateful Dead record in probably 20 years, if I'm being honest. I go through seasons with music for sure. And I have a long love of the Dead. I saw them, 6 or 7 times growing up and did 10 or 12 parking lots where I couldn't actually get a ticket. I don't know if I actually ever paid for a ticket to go see the Dead, to tell you the truth. I traded drawings for tickets. So there was this thing that you would do if you were in the parking lot and you didn't have any money, which was me as a young teenager. You would just do this. You think about this? You would just walk around like this while you were socializing with your finger up. And it was asking for a miracle. Or when someone would come over and just hand you a ticket, it meant you got miracled in the Dead sort of parlance.
That's really awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Should do that at Incubus concerts.
I know, right? We start encouraging, but it should be this one. Here's 3 tickets to Taylor Swift's private jet. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. There was the Dead cover album that came out 7 years ago, where it was a bunch of contemporary artists covering Dead songs.
I'll have to look that up. So I've got a question about your lyricism, actually, if I can. Your lyricism's always taken on a philosophical cadence, kind of like the words of an old soul that are as thought-provoking as they are emotionally moving. So what are some of your biggest vocal influences and lyrically and everything between?
Nice thing to say. Thank you. I could only sort of hope that people would even read the lyrics, let alone resonate with them in any way. If any of the lyrics that I've written have resonated with people, it is such a delightful surprise. I have always sort of been in pursuit of making sense of my own experience, and writing, just generally speaking, is to me the most assured way of making sense of one's experience, because you sort of are externalizing an internal process. And through lyric writing for songs, you get to sort of do that, but then you can add this extra sort of dimension of melody to it, which has this amazing capacity to express even more emotion and sentiment than mere words. So it's this phenomenal aesthetic technology that I've always been deeply fascinated by. So some people that have influenced me, I honestly have been I've definitely been influenced by songwriters, just to probably too many to mention, but some of them that have been very influential to me, especially lyrically, have been like PJ Harvey, Jeff Buckley, Chris Cornell, Leonard Cohen. Has always been, I marvel at his lyrics. His Leonard Cohen stuff still makes me cry, even as a middle-aged man. Just being with you. But something else I've really, really noticed is that I am very, very, very influenced by who I'm reading. And I've been collecting books, and I'm fascinated by writers' minds, both living and deceased, some of them long deceased, since I was a teenager. When I was like 15, we first started the band, I was fascinated with this writer named Robert Anton Wilson, who some of your viewers or listeners may be familiar with. He's a very kind of like weird, polarizing character, but he was into like this idea of a kind of like upsetting the status quo, like discord. He had this, it was like artful discord. He wanted to, and he would like write about conspiracy theories, but he'd do it with his tongue firmly placed in his cheek, making fun of conspiracy theorists but indulging them nonetheless. And so there were all these amazing books that he wrote that I just gobbled them up as a teenager. And some of the early Incubus lyrics were definitely influenced by that stuff. And then I started to delve more into like classic beat authors as a late teenager. And then that was influencing the music. And then I started delving even further into like what you could consider like classics in my early 20s. And that, coupled with some of those songwriters and poets that I mentioned, I think most certainly have had an effect on me. Yeah, it's just interesting. I find writers, whether they're songwriters or novelists, it's such an amazing technology that we can like look into someone's process. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Where they are intellectually speaking, spiritually speaking, emotionally speaking. And that is definitely fuel for songwriting.
It's like a window to their thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I just really want to thank you so much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate your insight as always. I speak for Evan and I when I say that you are definitely one of the best artists of our generation, and it's always an honor to speak with you.
Thank you so much.
No doubt.
Just want to close out by thanking you for joining us, and also to anyone who's listening in, please make sure to check out Morning View 23. But I'm going to let you go, Brandon, because I know you got places to go and people to say.
Yes, thank you for your time.
I appreciate your time as well. Yeah, thank you guys. Have a great day.
So that concludes that episode of the AltWire Podcast with Brandon Boyd. That was a great interview. What did you think, Evan?
That was amazing. A lot of great tidbits of wisdom in there.
He legitimately is one of my all-time favorite artists, not just from a Incubus standpoint, but from a solo standpoint as well.
Definitely. His whole energy is just very, very down to earth, and that's one of the best qualities about him.
I think we need to add a third host to the podcast. I think your black cat has to visit us a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll have to bust out Luna for her big debut. We call her Rue for short. Because whenever she meows, she rues.
You're going to call her rude if she keeps interrupting you like that.
Yeah. That's one of her nicknames. She's so sassy. So sassy.
Well, hey, I do want to thank all of you guys for joining us. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, please like, follow, and subscribe. Your support makes a world of difference, and we can't wait to see what you guys think. Thank you so much for tuning into the AltWire Podcast.